Let's start the meeting. Good evening, everyone. Today is Wednesday, November 4th. This is a regularly scheduled school committee meeting. Could we please all rise and begin our meeting by saluting the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Conway?
Here.
Mayor Elliott?
Here.
Mr. Gendron?
Here.
Mr. Leary?
Here.
Ms. Martin?
Here.
Ms. Rossikowicz?
Here.
Ms. Scott?
Here.
7 present.
7 present. First item on the agenda, we have minutes of the regularly scheduled school committee meeting on Wednesday, October 21st. Motion to accept on place on file by Mr. Conway, seconded by Mr. Gendron. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the opposed, motion carries. Move on to the next item. We have permission to enter of November 4th. Mr. Superintendent?
Good evening. Mr. Antonelli will explain.
Yes, I'd like to recommend to the school committee that you approve permission to enter for Allison McEachin for $24,000 to provide clinical assessments. This money will come from an elementary counseling grant. And for the Merrimack Valley Trauma Services for the amount of $16,192, which will also come from the elementary counseling grant.
Thank you. Questions on permission to enter these contracts? Motion to approve by Mr. Leary, seconded by Ms. Martin. Roll call.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Rossikowicz?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
That concludes permission to enter. We move on to motions of the evening. First motion is by Ms. Rossikowicz. Request the superintendent work with staff to partner with Lowell Public Schools with Investment, which is a nonprofit organization that works with families to invest in higher education. Seconded by Ms. Scott. Ms. Rossikowicz?
Just give me a moment. Okay, so since 2009, Inversant has partnered with education partners in the Boston area, Chelsea, Lynn, and most recently in Salem, Massachusetts. Their objective is to assist the entire family to invest in higher education. They empower low and moderate income families to become knowledgeable and fully engaged in what it takes to apply, to pay for, and succeed in higher education. Unlike most college access programs that center on the student or the school, they provide direct education to the entire family to prepare for their child's next step. While our own staff do and has done a fantastic job in providing guidance to our students and their families, it would appear that Inversant would be a great complement to the array of higher education access tools we already have available. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rossikowicz. Further discussion on this motion? Comments? Mr. Gendron?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm just is this a nonprofit organization that works with other school districts?
Thank you.
Curious.
I appreciate that question. Yes, it is a nonprofit organization. It's been around since 2009, and actually it was, in its original orientation, was called Fuel. So they've evolved over time. In 2009, they became Inversant. And the purpose was to work with school districts, and in particular high schools, and work exclusively with the families in small learning groups to work over strategies to allow or give our families the tools that they need to sort of think ahead in terms of what they need to do to save for college for their children.
And so is the intention, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, is the intention to ask the superintendent to sort of investigate this
Yes,
nonprofit organization and
Yeah.
determine if it makes sense
if it's
to,
viable, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Further questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Second motion of the evening by Ms. Scott. Motion is request the superintendent provide a report of open work orders and their age. Second by Mr. Conway. Ms. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just really a housekeeping piece. We requested this report over a year ago. I just wanted to see where we are, if we're caught up at all on the work orders. I walked into a school the other night, and I noticed that some of the paint and everything was falling from the roof overhang, and I know there had been a work order open over a year ago, I believe, for it. So just really wanted to get a good starting place for the new committee moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mr. Leary?
It's a really good motion, because we were seeing some of this too on Tuesday, going around some different issues. And I think it's something that you probably should have it as a standing motion, looking at it quarterly. So some issues, I know we still have the plumbers, I think, working with us, right? I don't recall what union they're in, but there's 2 plumbers, just to see, make sure if they're caught up on their work orders. But it's a good timely motion. We probably should do it quarterly, just keep it as a standing motion, just to give updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. Further comments on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. That concludes motions of the evening. We move on to subcommittee reports. The first report, oh, I am sorry, number 7.
You forgot me already, Mr. Mayor?
Set up for that one. The third motion of the evening is by Mr. Conway. Request the superintendent report on our strategies for school improvement and accountability. Given that MCAS scores determine school accountability level, create a document that shows the alignment between our curriculum and Common Core state standards for teacher use. Second by Mr. Jeter. Mr. Conway?
Thank you,
My
Mr. Mayor.
apologies.
That's fine. It's
been a long night.
I'll be very brief. I think that it basically speaks for itself. I think what the purpose of this is that, I've talked to some teachers over the last couple years, and they have mentioned that, they're wondering whether it is aligned correctly, and that all I'd like to do is just ask the superintendent if he could take a look at this and make sure that that we're teaching what we should be teaching, and as far as our curriculum is concerned. We don't want to be spinning our wheels on something that is something that we shouldn't be working on at the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. Further thoughts, comments, discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. And the opposed, that motion carries. I believe that now concludes motions of this evening. Next section, we have subcommittee reports. First subcommittee report is the Curriculum Subcommittee, approval of the minutes of the meeting of Tuesday, October 20th. I'd like to recognize the chairwoman of that subcommittee, Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I do believe I gave the verbal report on this at our last meeting, so this is just the submission of the written. I didn't? I'm looking at the secretary. That's great.
You deferred it.
Oh, that was smart of me.
Is there a motion to defer? Motion by Mr. Conway to defer again?
No, I'll go through it so we can put it to bed. That's fine. I'd hate to disappoint everybody. Thanks for that. Subcommittee did meet on October 20th. Present from the subcommittee were myself and Mr. Leary. From central office, we had Assistant Superintendent Claire Abrams, our coordinator of Pre-K4 Mathematics, Magala Ronan, and Arthur Santos, one of our technology integration specialists. We had 4 topics that we discussed. First was the result of a motion by Mayor Elliott regarding the average age of textbooks. We did receive a report from across the district about the varying ages of some of the textbook materials that we're using. I do think it's important to note that we really are moving more and more away from textbooks in general, just by nature of the increased reliance on technology and more flexible curriculum materials. But we did certainly notice as we went through, most of the purchases as we looked through did fall in the 2011, 2015 area, but there were a couple that really did stand out. One was the Science Explorer series being used at the middle schools. That was purchased in 1998, absolutely out of date, needs to be updated. So the curriculum office is aware of that and will be taking that into consideration as they make future recommendations. Another kind of glaring problem was grade 7 ancient history. It's a 20-year-old textbook package that we're using, so I suppose there's an irony in our ancient history being quite that ancient. But again, it's an area that our curriculum office is very well aware of and will be working to address. I'm hoping we'll be able to, probably in the spring, be able to bring forward the recommendations as part of our overall budget discussions, because it will warrant, significant investments, and making it in the context of the overall budget is generally the preferred method. We did discuss again the report card for kindergarten, moving more towards a standard-based process and instrument, which will more closely align with what we're doing for the rest of our report cards home to parents. There has been a great deal of work that's gone into this. There is a report that is included in our packets this evening that has a sample of the new report card. And I think there was certainly a great deal of work that happened both from the curriculum office, central office, but also throughout the district involving kindergarten teachers to ensure that this was something that would be effective for them. We hope not too onerous in terms of the time spent on the task. And I think most importantly that we'll be sending home to parents a report that they can use effectively so that they can confidently track their child's progress over the course of kindergarten and then their transition into the rest of their public school education here in the city. We did talk about our third item, the Eureka Mathematics, which is a new purchase moving forward for support for our mathematics instruction. Again, pre-K through 4. It is a system that is aligned with the Common Core. It was designed to work in that kind of environment. So in terms of the standards for mathematics, it is a very direct correlation to the Common Core standards, incorporating into it those increased attention to critical learning, critical understanding, and a deepening of the specific standards that we want our students to have. There will be challenges as we implement this across the district, ensuring that we do have our teachers' involvement in how we kind of work with the pacing of this across the district, and what we actually, we still control the use of the curriculum material, so what we'll be using, what we won't be using, so that we do have a consistency across the district in its implementation. Final topic was the iReady new program that's coming into place. There has been some training already that's happened around this new technology system. And really across the district, our technology department has been very involved in ensuring that everybody's ready to move forward with this. It will allow us to capture data from our students, focused right now on K through 8. We do have the other portal that's currently in place at the high school. But it is going to be one more way that we can use some of their diagnostic efforts so that we can better craft individualized instruction for our students. And we'll be looking forward to seeing how this kind of plays out. I know that I've heard outside of the meeting really positive things about the iReady system, that we've looked at a lot of different technology to help us in this area. But it really is being kind of heralded as a really quality product that we think we're going to get some great information from that will really help teachers and ultimately help our students. So there is the 4 items of discussion. I would submit that as a report of progress, and I hope that wasn't too painful. Thank you all.
Motion to accept that report as a report of progress.
Just real quick, yeah.
On the report, Mr. Leary?
Just quickly, I just want to mention Artie Santos and the iReady and some other folks with it. They've done this for a couple of years at the Moody, and it has high positive results. So hopefully, as we roll it out to other schools, that'll show the same results. It's very positive. So I just want to say this is kind of one of those where someone homegrown in our system brings technology outside or ideas outside, and I think that's pretty cool. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. Ms. Scott?
Just a quick question. On the middle school social studies text, actually, there's a few areas that says it, like online program, National Geographic series. What kind of professional development has been done with teachers? And are they doing this across the board? Are they still going back and using their textbooks, their very old textbooks?
Mr. Superintendent, sorry, Ms. Abrams?
Sure. When we first purchased the National Geographic, there was training that all teachers had for that because it was an online type system. The other thing that we've been able to offer to 7th grade this year, though I know we need to move forward and get something better. I truly understand that. But one of the other systems that we have in place is the PBIS system. I think we showed it once at Curriculum Subcommittee, not PBS, I'm sorry. And it's just a program that is online, but it brings into all different areas of social studies, areas of geography, and that's something that's available to all teachers as well. So, but I know we need to build the system better, and a lot of the teachers, so what we've already started to do is developed curriculum committees around science and around social studies so that we can bring teachers in and they can start, much like we did with mathematics many years ago, start to talk about what are the types of things they see out there now and what are the types of things we can bring in to have people look at. So in terms of are they going back and using the old textbooks, I think they're out there. I haven't seen them in use, but maybe other people have. And so that's why we know it's an area that we really have to do better work on, to tell you the truth.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Further discussion on this item? Motion has been made and, nope, motion to accept the report as report of progress and placed on file by Ms. Martin, second by Ms. Scott. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the opposed, motion carries. Next report of a subcommittee is the Personnel Subcommittee, report of the meeting of Thursday, October 29th, 2015. Chair would like to recognize the chairwoman of that subcommittee, Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The Personnel Subcommittee did meet on October 29th. Present were myself and other members of the subcommittee, Mr. Conway and Ms. Scott. Single topic of discussion, which was to review the superintendent's proposed evaluation instrument for the committee to use as part of his performance evaluation at the conclusion of the first year of service. We'll probably be looking at a September, October timeframe for that. The superintendent did provide the specific information. It has been included in everybody's packet. I would probably, if I could, make a request if we could take that item out of order in the report section of the superintendent's evaluation instrument. We can put that as part of this report and then put it all done.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. The motion passes.
Excellent.
Rules are suspended. We'll take item
13.
number 13. Oh, yes, sorry. Item number 13, superintendent's evaluation instrument.
Excellent.
You,
It's
Madam-
on page 60 for any of my colleagues who are looking on it on their iPads. So there are a number of different goals that the superintendent has chosen to focus on. As we review them at the subcommittee, I think that they absolutely reflect the priorities that we've been discussing. Again, this will be available as part of the packet, so I'd encourage anybody who's interested in kind of what the standards will be and what we'll be judging against it's a publicly available document. I encourage people to take a look at it. As we go through, and I'll just kind of name the broad strokes, I don't want to get into the specifics, but looking at our first goal of narrowing the achievement gap for all students, continuing to improve the performance of all of our level 2 and 3 schools through the systematic use of school-specific and district data. For those who are, as we take a look at it, there are the specific actions listed that the superintendent is anticipating taking to address this goal, what the necessary resources are going to be, both from himself and from the district as a whole, to be put towards this, achieving this goal, and then the timeline in terms of when we'll be able to kind of have a summative view of whether the goal has been reached or not. Second goal is developing a comprehensive strategic plan. I know we're all aware that this is an effort that's already underway. So as you look at the timeline, you can see that that is going to be a very tight timeline for us, which is great. So we'll have that in place fairly soon. Next goal, increase community engagement and transparency. Again, this is a very long-term goal, but I think as we take a look at some of the activities that are already happening to further that goal, that will put us in a good place. Developing a district diversity and hiring plan, a topic we've been discussing as a committee and as a community. So we'll be looking forward to seeing those benchmarks reached as we move forward. Again, this is a system that has been put in place from the state. It directly mirrors the education evaluations that we use with our teachers and our administrators. So this is absolutely in line with that same system. And as we go through, again, I don't want to get into too deep into the weeds, but there's a great deal of information that the superintendent has provided, and I strongly encourage our committee and certainly the community as a whole to take a look at it. This really will be what we base our course of action on in the short term and over the course of this full year. So it was submitted to the subcommittee. It was approved by the subcommittee to be submitted now to the full committee for their comment and approval. I'd make that in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Motion to accept by Ms. Martin, second by Ms. Vesicovitz. Mr. Superintendent, on the evaluation instrument, anything?
Well, I think Ms. Martin explained it thoroughly. Just one more thing is in the pages that talk about self-assessment, and they want you to have, in the template of the state, to have a self-assessment against student learning as well as a professional. I tried to explain it in that this self-assessment is really based on my past experience in other districts. Obviously, it's hard to do any self-assessment based on 3 months, and so that's the slight difference. It is a 2-year process, and other than the goal, one of the goals, which is the professional goal, which relates to the strategic plan, that's the only goal that's designed specifically for 1 year. The other goals are designed for 3 years, and 2 years, I'm sorry. And at the end of the year 1, you're supposed to add more goals if you feel like it, if the committee feels like it, or revise actually some of the goals as we go along. Thank you. And if you have any questions or anything, I'll be happy to provide more details.
Questions, comments? So motion made to accept the evaluation instrument by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Leary. Further discussion on that motion? Roll call.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes?
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Rosikowicz?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
7 yeas approved. That concludes item number 13. We'll revert back to, right.
And I'd submit that as a report of progress.
Motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Ms. Martin, second by Mr. Gendron. Further discussion on the motions, comments? Seeing none, roll call. No, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye, and the opposed, that motion carries. That concludes the subcommittee report. We will move on to reports from the superintendent. First, item number 10 is quarterly report on motions. Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is again following the motion that we bring this up at every meeting. We still looking at it. We have no new one completed yet. We are definitely several groups are working on a few. I still see that a few are still obsolete, I believe. We'll continue to update it, and hopefully in a few meetings we'll clear it up one way or another, either through reports or maybe recognize them as already completed or obsolete. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Comments, questions on quarterly reports? Seeing none, motion to approve by Mr. Gentleman, seconded by Mr. Conway. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That report is accepted as a report of progress and placed on file. Next item is 11, Lowell High School Athletics, Rule 53, waiver request. Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask Assistant Superintendent Janine Durkin.
Ms. Durkin?
Thank you. This is an annual waiver that we apply for through the state for 7th and 8th grade students, middle school students, to participate and try out to participate in ice hockey, ski, And the boys, this year, we're adding the boys swim and dive team. Mr. DeProfio is here if you would like some specific information relative to this request.
Thank you, Ms. Durkin. Any comments, questions from Mr. DeProfio? Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gendron?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had one question with regard to the ice hockey. I mean, swim and dive and skiing obviously are individual sports, but in the case of ice hockey, I know it can be pretty physical, so I'm wondering, ever any issues with younger kids participating in that sport?
What would happen is that this waiver would allow us to allow the students to try out, and so the coach would make selections based on students' ability to compete at the high school level.
So the coach will be able to make a judgment at that point in time?
Yes, the
whether
coach would.
And I assume parents would have to provide their consent for the
Yeah,
students.
the students who would participate in this through the waiver would have all the same requirements that any student athlete in grades 9 through 12 would have in terms of a consent form that's completed, a physical that's approved by the athletic trainer, and so all those things are in place.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
So I just have one question. Do you feel, and I mean, moving forward, we waive this for the ice hockey every year. At some point, does the team become self-sustaining without 7th or 8th graders as it continues to build, or?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that would be the plan, that this is helping us sustain programs and also helping programs to grow to the point where we would not in the future need waivers for these sports.
Great, thank you. Further discussion on this item?
Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, Mr. Conway?
Yeah, that's all right. Through you to Mr. DeProfio, why is it every year? It seems as though that's the only sport. I mean, don't we have any type of feeder system or any type of program that's put into place? That it seems as though every year we're looking for 7th and 8th graders, and I'm not sure why that should take place.
With these three particular sports, one of the issues with the younger students coming on to play these is that it's a specialized set of skills, and there is a certain socioeconomic demand on students to be able to participate. And so these sports are ones that in our community would be in need of this to sustain themselves and continue to grow. And so that was the original reason we asked, and why we continued to ask for this year to build the programs up.
Have you started with any type of a feeder program or working on it with your coaches in hockey?
There is youth hockey, different youth hockey programs that city students may participate in, and I know that Coach Occasion is familiar with those and has a good relationship with them. It isn't something that perhaps we could do the way we do other middle school sports, and so that was the reason for the waiver request for these.
Mr. Mayor, just one other question. A parent brought this up a while ago. If someone goes to the Voc and they don't have a sport, Lowell Voc, and if they don't have a sport there, do they have a waiver that they can come in and play for a Lowell team? They live in Lowell?
They don't, Mr. Conway, because they're students at another school.
Are we sure about that?
I'll double check for you. I think sometimes what people see is that there are certain communities where they have a cooperative team.
No, I thought that if they did not have a sport, a particular sport at the Voc, they could opt in to place, as long as they came from Lowell, they could play here at Lowell High.
That wasn't my understanding of it, but I'll certainly check and have an answer for you.
All right, thank you.
Further questions on that item? Seeing none, roll call. We have a motion?
No, we don't.
Motion to approve by Mr. Leary, seconded by Mr. Gendron. Roll call.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Rosikowicz?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
7 yeas approved. Thank you, Mr. DeProfio, for coming down. Next item on the agenda, we have Health and Wellness Grant Report. Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I'm going to ask Assistant Superintendent Durkin to present the Health and Wellness Report, Grant Report.
Ms. Durkin?
Thank you. This report is at the request of Mayor Elliott at the September 2nd school committee meeting for more information relative to what we had district-wide over the years for health education and what we've lost through the depletion of grant funds and budget over time. So unfortunately, we could only go back in the electronic files in Munis to between 2000 and 2010. But fortunately, I was around in 1990 and 1999. I'm really dating myself now, but during that time frame, we did have one district health coordinator, a clerk that was funded, psychologists, peer advisors, 9 stipended peer advisors for all of our middle schools at the time, 2 district-wide social workers, and 7 district-wide health educators. And that was all funded through grant funds. Additionally, at that time, in our middle schools, most of our middle schools had health educators, as well as our high school. At this time, on record, what we have is 2 middle school health educators and 4 high school health educators, and that was our building-based principals having to make a difficult choice when budgets came around to eliminate. So at this time, there really is a gap in the prevention efforts that are going on district-wide.
Thank you, Ms. Durkin. Ms. Martin, could I ask you to come take the chair?
The chair recognizes Mayor Elliott.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. So I just thank you for this report. It's very helpful. It's very informative. There was a request from the City Council meeting, and I'll file a formal motion in a couple of weeks, but the request just last week from the council was to implement an opiate addiction curriculum in the school. And I know that I had brought this up and waiting for this report, knowing that there was prevention education in the schools in the past. So if there's no objection from my colleagues, I'd like to ask to suspend the rules to see if the superintendent can come up with a plan on, what the cost would be to implement something of this similar nature when it comes.
Motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Leary, seconded by Mayor Elliott. All those in favor say aye. Rules are suspended to bring in a new motion.
Thank you very much. But that's essentially the motion, Mr. Superintendent. If you can work and come up with some figures and statistics and logistics, I should say, on what it will take to implement this type of program, and if any grant funds. I want to say when this came up before, there was an opportunity perhaps for grant funds out there, or maybe it was Ms. Sheridan that came to a city council meeting saying that, there's not a formal program, but there are funds out there. Ms. Martin, you're shaking your head. I know that I'm not losing it, but is that correct?
I'm saying you're absolutely right. Yeah, I
Right.
absolutely
There is,
agree.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so if we could explore that, I just wanted to make sure. If we could explore that and find out what it needs, and I think at some point, the governor has talked about education and making certain that we begin this process, because certainly that is one significant approach, is to start the education process early. And so the request came from the City Council to bring forward that the school system implement a program on teaching about this and begin the prevention process. Excuse me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No other comments? Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And then a motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Ms. Ross-Sikowicz, seconded by Ms. Scott. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. So we move on to, that concludes reports of the superintendent. Moving on to new business, we have permission to post Assistant Computer Network Program Manager. Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This position is actually not really new. It's just retitling it. The high school used to have their own computer manager. That was, I guess, I'm told it's inherited from the old days when networks were separated. Today we have one large network for all the schools integrated, and rather than having a separate network manager, it is the desire to have an assistant computer manager. The person will still be located and servicing primarily the high school when they're there, but they will also be attending to district-wide needs since they can attend it right from their keyboard at the high school.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Questions? Ms. Martin and Ms. Rassikowitz.
Could you give us a quick differential on the salary range? Is this the same basic range that position had previously? Or is
Yes,
this a
there is
change?
no real distinction that I know of.
Perfect, thank you.
Ms. Rassikowitz?
Actually, I was moving to approve.
Motion to approve by Ms. Rassikowitz, second by Ms. Scott. Further questions, comments on this item? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Conway? Mr.
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Rossikowicz?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Thank you.
I believe that concludes new business. Move on to item number 15. There are 3 requests to travel.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we take those 3 travel requests as a single unit.
Motion by Mr. Gendron, second by Mr. Conway to take all 3 requests together for travel. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. In the opposed, that motion carries. Motion to accept, motion to approve these 3 travel requests by Mr. Leary, seconded by Ms. Martin. Questions, comments? Roll call.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Chim Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Rossikowicz?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
7 yeas approved. That concludes convention conference requests. Next item is an executive session. Executive session, the purpose of the executive session is regarding United Teachers of Lowell collective bargaining and grievance and litigation update. We will also, at the conclusion of this, need a motion actually. Motion to, once this is concluded, is to adjourn from this regular session. Excuse me, motion by Ms. Rassikowitz and by Ms. Martin. Roll call.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Rossikowicz?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
7 yeas, approved. Committee will go into executive session and adjourn thereafter.
So what's this I hear about you getting some kind of an award this weekend?
An award? What'd you do?